Welcome to the show, guys. Happy Monday. Got a good one here for you. We are talking about Waiver Wire Week 7. I've got some optimal pickups here for this week that you may want to consider picking up off the Waiver Wire. We're going to go position by position and also give you all of these studs and sucks NFL Week 6 highlights. And I'm telling you, man, it's just been a wild year. I'm going to cover that here for you guys. All the studs and sucks of the week. And, of course, some Waiver Wire suggestions. If you are new to the channel, guys, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. I looked at the algorithm, guys. Look at the people that are watching. There's a lot of people watching the channel, but not everyone's subscribed. So hit the subscribe button. Join the only community that's giving you guys truth that's actually going to help you guys be light years ahead of the sheep, guys. Everyone else is copying and pasting rankings is not going to help you. Everyone told you to draft CMC first overall. How's that working out for you, okay? It's not, right? So, guys, hit the thumbs up and drop your question below. If you have any starts and sits questions, let's focus on Waiver Wire. If you have any Waiver Wire questions, drop them below right now, guys. I will get to as many as I possibly can, okay? So I got to talk a little bit about some news and notes here. It's just been wild year. And I want to talk about this because I just posted this in my Patreon group. If you're not a Patreon member, patreon.com/FFCounselor for direct access. I was just talking about this in my Patreon group. And here's the thing, guys. I want to talk about something that's very, very important. The fantasy landscape has significantly changed. There's a lot of crazy stuff going on, okay? What's happening is that not only over the past several years since the Mark Ingram days, if you guys remember on the Saints, are they doing away with the running back, the workhorse running back, right? Because the workhorse running back is the only thing that gives you, well, you get solid numbers, right? But I believe with all these betting sites and you got all these prop bets, right? All these DFS sites, what they're doing is it seems like they're manipulating the stats. They don't want you to have your consistent production. There's been zero consistent production. I mean, I'm looking at some stats right here, right now. And for example, Keenan Allen, right, had a good game. He had 21 points. DJ Moore had 6 points. Why are we not, and we always have been able to, why are we not able to determine who the wide receiver one is? And I talked about this going into the season. I'm like, dude, don't invest a third round pick on DJ Moore because you're going to have volatile games. You're going to have games where one wide receiver does well and the other doesn't. Now, if you're going to do that, do it in later rounds. Do it with guys like Romeo Doubs, whereas Romeo Doubs had a big week and Jaden Reed and the other guys kind of went down. Doubs had the 2 touchdowns. So you're going to get the wide receiver roulette stuff, but you do it in later rounds. So I'm, even with 16 rounds, and as a guy that is 20 steps ahead, is having trouble navigating on, nobody knows who's consistent anymore. Nobody knows at all. So I'm telling you, that's why I got Derrick Henry. He's been anchoring my team. Saquon Barkley had a down week this week, which we're going to talk about. But I just want to talk a little bit this in the news. An important announcement here is that fantasy landscape's changing, and we're going to keep you guys up to date on this craziness. And as 16 rounds evolves, I'm even going to start thinking 30 steps ahead, right? I was 20 steps ahead. Now I'm 30 steps ahead to accommodate for this nonsense because they're trying to mess you up. So I'm here to try to fix that and mitigate the madness. That's why I told you to avoid guys like CMC and guys like Keenan Allen and DJ Moore in the early rounds and be smart with your picks. But even still, guys like Brian Thomas Jr., who's been tearing it up, had a bad week this week as well, right? It's a good year, but bad week. So we're going to help you guys navigate through that. But I wanted to make that announcement here that the fantasy football landscape, the world is changing. I think they're purposely trying to screw it up for you guys so you guys don't have consistency with the prop bets and all that and fantasy teams in general. They know how big it is now and they don't want any part of it, okay? A couple of things in news also I want to talk about here. Travis Etienne hamstring considered week to week. You know, Bigsby is supposed to come in. He didn't do anything yesterday either. And actually, we could go over these news and notes. There was some injuries here and there. Aiden Hutchinson, I don't know if you saw that major injury to the leg. It was, oh man, it was I don't even know what it's called. It's like the shin area. Terrible. So there was some injuries here. That was a gruesome one. Follow my IG at Fantasy Football Counselor if you haven't seen it. I did a post on that. But again, it's like injuries. It's like concussions. That's another thing. Concussions were never a big thing. And I'm all about protecting the player's head. But if they're just taking a regular hit, it's just a normal hit, and it's like, oh, okay, maybe their head bounced off the floor, but they get right up. They still pull you out for a play, maybe put you out in the tent, pull you out for the game. And a guy like Malik Neighbors, who was out partying days after his concussion, and you're not supposed to be at concerts seeing bright lights. That's not good for your brain, right? And he's out at concerts, and then he misses 2 weeks, right, on concussion protocol. Dude, you're at concerts. Like, he's fine. Put him on the field, right? They're almost like being too sensitive. So, again, there's a lot of stuff going on. We're talking fantasy football news. It's like, you're talking about the inconsistencies and the wide receivers by committees now, which was never a thing until like this year, the year before, right? It was always like the clear-cut one, that running back and wide receiver, and then you've got these concussions, and it's like it's just getting softer and softer and harder. So again, we'll mitigate the risk for you. But again, this is something we need to talk about, we need to address that nobody else is really talking about, okay? So let's go through each position here, starting with quarterback, and also go over all of the studs and sucks, and then also give you some waiver wire suggestions here at each position. Again, if you're new to the channel, smash it, tap it, drop a question below if you have a question surrounding waiver wire. And also, guys, I've opened up a brand new group, guys, Counselor's Edge, to give you the advantage in sports betting as well. So if you're against the spread, if you're playing against the spread or straight up, or if you want to get into props, crushed yesterday, had a ton of winners. So make sure you guys do join the Counselor's Edge. I've linked it below to get an advantage in sports bets as well. All right. So let's talk about this. Starting with the quarterback position, the guys that did well, I got to give them an honorable, a bow down. Say, good job, guys, because you did well. We got Caleb Williams here, had himself a great game, 28.6 fantasy points, amazing. Baker Mayfield, 25.9. Jordan Love, Jared Goff, Brock Purdy, Justin Fields, Jalen Hurts, Jaden Daniels, who's been consistent throughout the year, Bo Nix, and Joe Burrow. Now, when we're talking consistency, this is what we're going to make sure we do next year, is we get ourselves the most consistent quarterback as possible. Now, we attempted to do that this year, but a lot of guys fell off. And some people may have said, well, Anthony Richardson's consistent, but he's not. Like, he hadn't even been proven. So I suggested Josh Allen, and even him, he's not doing as well as we thought. Hopefully tonight on the Monday Night Football game, he does well. But you're getting some consistency out of Jaden Daniels and some other guys here, like Jordan Love has been pretty solid. Caleb Williams now starting to emerge. Good for him, right? Now, the guys that crapped the bed at the quarterback position, the sucks of the week, Kyler Murray, 12 points. 21st, again, this is excluding the Monday game, 21st amongst quarterbacks. Dak Prescott, I mean, that whole team was terrible, absolutely terrible yesterday. 3.2 fantasy points, 26th amongst quarterbacks. Daniel Jones, 11.8. Guys, these guys should be doing a lot better for your teams. They're just not. So, I don't know what to tell you. I mean, a lot of people invested high draft capital in Dak Prescott, not third round draft capital, but relatively high. And he absolutely sucks. So those guys are the sucks of the week. You guys should be ashamed of yourselves. Shame, shame, shame. I got to rip into these guys. I mean, 3.2 fantasy points out of Dak Prescott, a guy that's pretty much is paid more than any other quarterback in the NFL. Absolutely ludicrous. I mean, just not getting it done, losing the game. What did they lose by? 47-9, guys. Now, again, if you got my Counselor's Edge, you knew that Detroit was going to cover and Detroit was going to win. I laid that out. I had Atlanta, got that one right, got the Pittsburgh game right, got the Ravens game right, got a bunch of games, the Browns game, I got the Texans game right, got the Packers game right, I got the Buccaneers game right. I think I got like 3 wrong this week in the Counselor's Edge. If you're batting over 500, man, you're doing good in sports bets because there's so much uncertainty. But this week, man, if you got the Counselor's Edge, you guys are doing well. You made some coin. Okay, so guys, get it below. So I'll give you guys some waiver wire suggestions. Again, depending on your league, you may or may not have these guys available. Trevor Lawrence, Jared Goff, Tua, when he comes back, could be viable for sure, as long as he doesn't get hurt again. Drake May, Will Levis, who hasn't been the greatest, but if you're desperate as 2 quarterbacks, super flex league, you need a quarterback. He could put you 10, 12 points a week. Then you got Andy Dalton as well. So I guess the key takeaway here is that hopefully you guys got your consistent quarterback at the beginning of the year, because it's been a bit of a crapshoot there. So those are your quarterback stuff and stuff. Let's move on to my favorite position, running back. And if you're not following on Insta, and if you haven't turned on your notifications here, do that and go follow Insta at Fantasy Football Counselor. I was so angry yesterday, right? Like, literally, we're watching the game, and I see Algier coming out on the drive. We're talking running backs here. Bryjan had a great week, 25.5 points, 6.3 yards per carry, 2 touchdowns. But at the end of the game, they're putting Algier in. And even in some of the drives, I think it was third or fourth quarter, I saw Algier, they're getting stuffed near the goal line. Why is Bijan not in on all the drives? Again, this is what I'm talking about, right? Like, you see Bijan doing well, he's crushing it, he's your one, and they're putting in Algier. So it's crazy. Let's talk about Sean Tucker here, a guy I talked about last year. A great player, does well, 9.7 yards per carry, a touchdown, 34.2 fantasy points, a top waiver wire pick for this week. But he's number one in fantasy points. Again, some people say, who's Sean Tucker? If you follow this channel, we talked about him last year. He's been buried on the depth chart. I think he had some off-field stuff that he had to deal with, some physical stuff. But yeah, just absolutely tore it up. And I told you that Rachaad White is just not that good. He's Mr. Mediocre, boring, safe, run-of-the-mill, do not draft. Again, I warned people in 16 rounds. Be careful with him. If you want him, he's going to be very safe, very boring. Could lose his job. And here comes Sean Tucker here, number one running back, excluding the Monday night game. Sean Tucker, Joe Mixon had a good game. Bijan, Henry, awesome. Got stock of those guys. Tyrone Tracy, if you're not following on Instagram, I said, fire up Tyrone Tracy. I did the latest news and notes there in a reel on Insta. Also here on YouTube. Again, that's why I turn on the bell. I talked about Tyrone Tracy. Tyrone Tracy finishing fifth amongst running backs, 22.7 fantasy points. Not bad. He did have that touchdown. His yards per carry were 2.9. Not the greatest, but not bad. DeAndre Swift here, 21.9 points. David Montgomery, again, that committee hoarding away precious volume from Gibbs. It's ludicrous. It's bothersome. I don't know what to tell you. 12 attempts for David Montgomery, also 12 attempts for Jahmyr Gibbs, okay? Kenneth Walker, Najee Harris, Tyler Algier, Bucky Irving at 11, J.K. Dobbins at 12. Now, I do want to mention something here I noticed with Najee Harris. I guess he's in a contract year. He was running hard, 160 yards, 7.6 yards per carry. He did have a touchdown as well and 20.2 points. I was watching him. He was actually, for the first time, burrowing through people. Like, he was actually running hard. So I don't know whether there's some new life there, I don't know. He just found a new light, but I don't know if it's going to stay consistent, but amazing stuff out of the game. This is what we kind of expected, what we wanted out of Najee. Hasn't performed well. Actually got it done in week 6. So good on him, man, getting it done, okay? Let's go through some sucks of the week. These guys should be ashamed of yourself. Shame, shame, shame. James Conner. I know he got banged up a little bit. Trey Benson came in, had over 5 yards per carry. Didn't get too many fantasy points, but already James Conner going back to his usual self of lack of performance and injury. 6.6 fantasy points, 34th amongst running backs in rankings in week 6. Zeke Elliott, 2.1 yards per carry. 53rd at 1.7 fantasy points. Yet people are saying draft Zeke Elliott. And the Cowboys, I'm so happy they're losing because these are the guys that faded, guys that could have been the workhorse backs. Guys like Blake Corum, Braylon Allen, Trey Benson, all these guys are viable potential starters that are buried on a depth chart that could have been starters on a team that didn't have a running back, that is the Cowboys. They got rid of Zeke and like, hey, let's just bring him back. He sucks. Let's get rid of him, but let's bring him back. Zeke Elliott, man, I don't know what he's doing on this team. I don't know what he's doing in the NFL at this point in his career. Guys, it's not 2016, 2017, or 2018. We are heading into 2025, and Zeke Elliott's at a starter. It doesn't make sense. That's why you're getting the 1.7 yards per carry. 1.7 fantasy points, 2.1 yards per carry. Stand corrected there, okay? Saquon Barkley, 2.6 yards per carry, 31st amongst running backs, 7.4 fantasy points. After I've been preaching and talking about how much I love this guy, how much he's good, Saquon Barkley, crap in the bed, 7.4 fantasy points. Ridiculous. He should be ashamed of himself. And Josh Jacobs seems to be like a similar narrative every single week. 12 fantasy points and just crap in the bed. I don't know what to tell you. Josh Jacobs just not returning his ROI. 12 fantasy points for a guy that was drafted in the 3rd round. Not good. 3.4 yards per carry. He should be embarrassed and ashamed of himself. He was never that good. He had that one good year a couple years ago. And then they're like, yeah, let's just make him our starter here in Green Bay. And how's that working out for you? Like, not good. He's just not that good. Nothing else to add there, okay? Waiver wire guys, suggestions here. Ty Chandler, Tyrone Tracy, Isaac Guerrero going off. Jordan Mason was sidelined. Guerrero went off for a nice run. Kamani Vidal. I mean, we talked about this team not doing good at all with their running backs, not really getting the run. I mean, they're doing okay, but with Gus Edwards on IR now, Kamani Vidal has an opportunity to emerge a little bit if you need a running back, if you're desperate. He finished 19th amongst running backs, 13.1 fantasy points, only 2.8 yards per carry, but he did have a receiving touchdown. Kamani Vidal, I think it was his first touchdown in the NFL. Congratulations. Could be a viable starter week in, week out. But then you got content with Dobbins, but as soon as he goes down, which is very possible as well, Vidal takes the job, okay? We talked about Sean Tucker. There's an opportunity there. Might as well grab him. And Trey Benson, hopefully, he gets more volume here, and Connor starts fading into the sunset. We want to really get these young guys going, and they're just hindered. There's so much talent. Like, again, Connor's starting, but he's not going to be sensational. He's not going to be explosive. He's not going to be running with a lot of heart. He's not going to be running with a lot of pep in his step. And you notice this with Najee Harris, who is primed for a contract year. He's running hard. He's got that fire. And so do these rookies coming in. They're hungry. They're young. A guy like James Conner, always been a backup, never been that good, even on his best year. We need to kind of shift away from him and move towards the younger guys. So I'm hoping for a Connor sideline and a Trey Benson start, okay? Let's keep going here. Wide receiver. Let's move on to wide receiver. So we talked about waiver wire. Talk about the sucks of the week. Zeke, Saquon Jacobs, Connor. Again, drop a guy that sucked for you this week. We'll get to it. Now, wide receiver, what a disaster, okay? We talked about how they are going wide receiver committee, right? So what I want to talk about here today is the studs and sucks, but also how do we mitigate the risk here? There really is no way. The only way to do that is really just try to go for those wide receiver ones early. Now you're saying, well, Joe, now you're advocating for, zero RB. I'm not really, because you still need that RB1. So it's getting really slim and trim at the wide receiver and the running back position. But I would say the robust RB strategy has to take a little bit of a breather next year. And we're going to start working a ace running back and ace wide receiver in the 2 rounds, because this is very important. We learned that tight end's a bit of a crapshoot. So I'm adapting and trying to figure out what the perfect strategy is. I'm going to have that for you guys for next year. But it's just been wild, and we're navigating through it. So let's just talk about the studs here. Chris Godwin, A.J. Brown, Terry McLaurin, Zay Flowers, Gabe Davis. See, again, it's like Gabe Davis has no business being the wide receiver 1 when you got the superior Brian Thomas Jr., who, again, was targeted in the end zone. I was watching that game. I think he dropped one, or it went over his head or something like that. He was targeted a few times, didn't manage to pull it in. But when you're looking at Gabe Davis, 8 targets, 5 receptions, 2 touchdowns. That's not Gabe Davis. This is, again, wide receiver roulette continues. Demario Douglas, wide receiver roulette. He's doing well. Keenan Allen, wide receiver roulette. Deebo Samuel, wide receiver roulette. Romeo Doubs, wide receiver roulette. It's crazy, man. And you got Romeo Doubs at 9, Deontay Johnson at 10, Stephon Diggs at 11, Josh Downs at 12, where we had Alec Pierce be the guy last week. It's just been wild. Then you got Tank Dell at 14. You got Jameis Williams at 15. Amon-Ra St. Brown at 25. Amon-Ra St. Brown is supposed to be the clear-cut one. Jameson Williams is outperforming him. I don't know how to say this, man, but it's just crazy. Jameson Williams just doing really well in multiple games where he's outperforming Amon-Ra St. Brown. It's just absolutely wild. Wild stuff, okay? New Orleans Saints, Bub Means. If you don't know who Bub Means is, he plays on the Saints. It's his rookie year, 5th round pick. Apparently, he got some volume this week. I mean, what do you have? 8 targets, 5 receptions for Bub Means. I don't even know if that's sustainable. I've never heard of the guy prior to this week. Then you got Kayshon Boutte. Now, some people will say, well, Joe, you're the fantasy counselor. You're supposed to hear about these guys. Dude, I'm all over this. Prior to the season, I look at the depth charts, right? Some of these guys are buried on the depth chart or non-existent or unsigned free agents, and nobody talks about them, including myself, because you got to have this type of week. I mean, you got to have a major injury, Olave going out, and then all of a sudden a rookie quarterback, Spencer Rattler, or whoever that guy is, right, come in and then target a bottom feeder and Bub Means. It's an unforeseen scenario. I would have never thought, hey, week 6, the starting quarterback's going to be out. You're going to get a rookie quarterback come in and they're going to target a guy that was drafted as a rookie ahead of Olave. You can't make this stuff. You can't even dream this stuff up. So I'm telling you, man, Bub Means, I just don't see any consistency. Maybe Maybe. I mean, if Olave gets sidelined for a long period of time, and it's just wild, dude. Like, again, these wide receivers, like if you look at this right now, okay, like Michael Pittman, wide receiver 26, Jamar Chase, wide receiver 27. Who else we got here that are big names? Oh, we're going to get to the sucks of the week in a second. DJ Moore, wide receiver 54. So let's get right to the sucks of the week. I mean, this is crazy. Brian Thomas Jr., 5.7 points. Amari Cooper, 8.2 points. Calvin Ridley, 0.9. And if you watch the video, Calvin Ridley was cursing after this, the game. He was like cursing, saying, and he said, the F word and all that. And he said he should be targeted earlier in the game. He was 8 targets, 0 receptions, just absolutely wild. Okay. Crazy. Marvin Harrison, 0 points. DJ Moore, 6 points. Keenan Allen, 21 points, right? Darnell Mooney, 6.8 points. It's crazy, dude. Like, these are guys that, like, Mooney, I can understand. He had the big week last week, and everyone expected him to have that. No, guys, 1 week wonder, right? Rashid Shaheed, who's been also doing well, 82nd amongst wide receivers, 2.3 fantasy points. So, a lot of sucks of the week, including Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley, DJ Moore, we talked about. George Pickens, only 8.3 fantasy points. Amari Cooper, we talked about. DK Metcalf, 7.8 fantasy points, guys. Absolutely ludicrous, okay? So, that's just the new name of the game, man. You have wide receiver ones performing well below bench players. I mean, if I had told you that, Lad McConkey, Amari Cooper, DK Metcalf, DJ Moore, Brian Thomas Jr., Calvin Ridley are going to be outperformed by Bub Means in week 6, you would say, put that guy in a straitjacket in a padded room, because there's no way that's going to happen, right? But this is Fantasy Football 2024. Here's where we're at, okay? Waiver wire suggestions: Josh Downs, Juju Smith, Christian Watson, Demario Douglas, Romeo Dobbs, Xavier Legette, Jalen Tolbert, Alan Lazard, all possible options. And if you want Bub Means, by all means, go for it. But he's not going to be on my team, okay? Just wild stuff in the Wild West here. Okay, let's go tight ends here. Hopefully I'm not missing anything. Again, Cole Kmet, George Kittle, Evan Ingram, Trey McBride, Brock Bowers, Mark Andrews, Hunter Henry, Noah Fant, Sam Laporta, Zach Ertz, all in the top 10. Sam Laporta back in the mix with 12 points. Again, a bit of a drop from last year. It is what it is. Kate Auden gets a touchdown, 9.5 points. Some mentions here. Guys that crap the bed. My guy, I apologize, had a bad week, but I think it was that entire offense there with the Dallas Cowboys. But Jake Ferguson had himself a terrible week. Not good. What do you have? Like 4.1 fantasy points. Pat Freiermuth, 3.6 fantasy points. That's very, very shameful. Those are kind of the two guys that crap the bed. Theo Johnson should have done better, 6 points. You would think that he would do well on the Giants with Malik Neighbors being out. Obviously not. Brenton Strange takes a dip down with 2.1 coming off that big week last week, because we've got Evan Ingram back getting the targets, 10 targets, 10 receptions for 18.2 points. He did fumble the ball once. I saw that, Evan Ingram. And yeah, it is what it is, man. But yeah, tight end, a bit of a mess, okay? So options, nothing really, man. There's nothing really to pick up. Zach Ertz, Kate Auden, if you're interested. I don't know, it depends on who's available in your league. I doubt guys like Brock Bowers are there. Maybe Hunter Henry could be an option here. Noah Fant from Seattle had 6 targets for 6 receptions. If you want Noah Fant, if he's available. And that's pretty much it, man. There really is. I mean, Mo Alley Cox finished 16th, but he's kind of up and down. So that's pretty much it for tight end. Now, let's go over some defenses that have some good matchups this week. I do have starts and sits, so make sure you catch that. It's a little more up to date. But Jacksonville, Buffalo, Cincy, Philly, Washington, the Rams, and the Chargers. Decent matchups versus position here if you want to pick up a defensive stream. Again, Jacksonville, Buffalo, Cincy, Philly, Washington, Rams, and the Chargers here for your possible waiver wire pickups at the defensive position here, okay? Man, oh man, what a wild week 6. Now we're heading into fantasy football week 7. If you are looking for waiver wire picks, again, go through this video, go through each position. I've timestamped everything. Go check it out. And if you're new to the channel, guys, smash it, tap it, slap it, hit the thumbs up. And again, it was just more of a talking discussion here today to give you guys an overview and make you guys aware that it is a wild, wild west here for fantasy football. Smash it, tap it, slap it. Have a great week. Have a great Monday. Enjoy the Monday night game. I appreciate you. Subscribe, thumbs up. We'll talk soon. Okay, guys? Fantasy Football 2024. I'm going to keep you guys on top of everything. Turn on that bell. We'll talk soon. I'm out.